but we should be good to go.
Okay, great. So we talked last time about maybe just kind of reviewing kind of where we are. So I did a scorecard. Thought maybe we could start off by just kind of going
Yep.
over everything, if that's okay.
That works perfect.
Just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. Thanks. And obviously, this is maintained manually, so if you see a mistake, just let me know, but I think it's.
Thank you. Let me get my pen.
I also can't remember what my rhyme or reason is to why some of them are red and some of them are black, so you can ignore the coloring, because I honestly don't know why they're colored.
Okay, yeah.
So it's really just the dates that matter, and then we can determine kind of where the things are.
That sounds good.
So we're gonna bring 4, 8, 9, 10, and 4, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Yeah, 4, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
I don't know why I thought there was 5. There was only 4. And I think that will mean, if I'm correct, I don't think there'll be anything left on our side.
Right.
We just wanted to confirm that with you all. Because again, we are trying to get you, when you give it to us, we're trying to get it turned right around and get it back to you.
Yes. Let me double check on the notes here.
Yeah, you just put it in the notes doc, right?
Yeah. Okay, you guys still have 16 on your side, do you not?
Oh, I'll make a statement about this. We're not gonna counter, I'll say now, we're gonna stand on our previous offer for 930. We're not interested in, we're not gonna be assembling a counter offer. We're just gonna refer back to our previous offer for 930.
Okay.
That was the 5th one. That's Geico.
The peanut butter tea.
I can't send you. So, yeah, any other ones that you think that might be still out?
No, this seems to match what we have.
Okay.
Obviously a couple of them we're waiting on, 23, 24. We're still working on a couple things. And they go connect to 28, which we're trying to finish up.
Gotcha. But in terms of those, Austin, would you say that we're basically, do you think there's a lot of more substantive discussion, or is it more cleanup and reference?
23 and 24, I think we're pretty much set on. We just have to make sure, 28, I think we have a couple of notes to still get through, and those, I think, get closer to substance. They're not as substantive as, 4 is obviously,
Yeah.
but once we get that figured out, then I think we will be able to TA all 3 of those
Okay, great.
pretty easily.
Yeah, so I've got 4 identified. 7 identified, 8, which we're bringing today, 9, which we're bringing today, 10, which we're bringing today, and 16 as the ones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the ones that we have that we think we probably still have the most, we have probably the greatest separation. The thing that we hadn't necessarily heard back from, and we're pretty sure it was on your side, was we went pretty back and forth a lot on 13.
Yes.
Do you know, are you guys planning on bringing another?
Yeah, we've been working on it. Obviously, we want to make sure we get that right. And as we indicated, we're very focused on 7 and 10.
No, I got it.
So every time you guys give us one of those, we've been making sure to try to get that back as soon as possible. And that, taking less time for 13, but we're pretty close there, we think.
Okay.
I do want to talk about 16 a little bit here. I mean, obviously you reiterated now for the third time that you're going back to your proposal on 930.
Yeah,
But your proposal on 930 is a strong deviation from current contract language.
I know that.
I mean, acknowledging that is one thing, but I think we've made it very clear, and I'll make it clear again, we are not interested in getting rid of that release time
Understood.
positions. And so like, as the other half bargaining here, it's very tough to say, we've made our position clear. You guys are asking for something. We're not interested in having that change the current contract language, but reiterating we're going back to that does not give us discussion to say, how do we find that happy middle ground?
Yeah, I get it.
So, what is your happy middle ground here? Where do we go from you giving us pretty much nothing on this?
I'll be the first one. I don't know if there is a happy middle ground on that one. I mean, our positions are fundamentally diametrically opposed.
Mhm.
I mean, and frankly, it's a sort of it's a state of only two states. It either exists or it doesn't. And
Yep.
our proposal is it doesn't exist at all.
Yeah,
So
and none of our
I'm
proposals are
willing
going to.
acknowledge it's not a position that has a lot of wiggle room in it. I'm not gonna try to make it sound like it's something that it isn't.
Yeah, okay. I mean, none of our proposals are going to have that where we get rid of that release time. I don't think that's in our cards for us. There's been nothing given in any of the other articles that would make us even consider doing that. So,
Okay.
we'll have to have a talk as a team on what we do moving forward, but, I mean, your team, to be frank, is putting us in a bit of a bind and giving us very few options there. So,
I appreciate that. I mean, maybe what we can try to do is see how close we can get on some of the other ones.
yeah,
And, I'd like to keep working on the other ones if possible.
no, I think we're making some good progress on some of these other ones. I want to keep seeing that, but our team is not gonna continue to make counter offers when there hasn't been a counter offer given to us. When we're returning to those previous offers, there's tough to make changes on those kind of points. So
I understand.
I have received your email. So,
You got it?
yeah.
All right, why don't we start with 4?
Okay, give me just a second to get these downloaded enough.
Because I think it's gonna be the most. A little. Looks like a bit of a patchwork quilt, so. Said happy to go slow, and like I said, when we're done, I recommend a close side-by-side reading. I did print out. Both of the ones that you had given us to try to more effectively identify the places where there's a change or a deviation. But let me go ahead and start with sort of the overarching difference that you're gonna see, because I think it's probably the one that's the most important and stark from your proposal to where we are, and that is, the interpretation, I don't think it was much of interpretation, I think it was pretty clear. The interest in having a term limited multi-year guaranteed appointment, but for cause is just not something that we are going to, it's not an area of the contract that we're interested in giving in on. The other component that is, and like I said, I'm gonna go through the specifics, but I want to kind of make a couple general points first.
Yep.
The other one is the fact that there was an interest in separating the letters of appointment and a notice of reappointment. And I think, we have restructured this. We've given them the two different titles and definitions, but in terms of issuing both of them, we're not interested in creating all this additional burden and paperwork. I do think that we are willing to have more conversation, and it's unfortunate that Eva is not really here. I've had a lot of conversation. We've had conversation internally about where are we either falling down or failing to meet those deadlines and putting certain GAs in a position where they can't get their stuff done.
Right.
My understanding is if we get those reappointment notices effectively issued by the May 15th deadline, that there's no that's not a holdup in any way, shape, or form for any of the paperwork that has to be filed with with UFIC. So maybe there's another component that we didn't necessarily understand. Now, I'm not talking about in cases where we miss our deadline, so don't misunderstand me, because I'm not saying that we should be given an opportunity to miss the deadline that's contemplated.
Right.
But when we get to that part, we can talk more. And if you have more, if I missed something or there was a specific component of it that we didn't understand, obviously, please let us know. But
Ava is in the Zoom chat, so
Okay.
Ava, if you want to talk as we're going through this,
Yeah,
I see
please.
you have your hand raised now.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah, so the other way that I've been envisioning this, and obviously there is like a common understanding here of like the need to have these deadlines, right? And to make sure that they're met. The issue comes with like maybe these documents are not clear as necessary for the people that have to interpret them, right? And that basically make very important decisions for international students on their I-20s, I-20 renewals. So my other thing was maybe if the letter of appointment that acts as a reappointment notice, which is my understanding of what is happening at the moment. That letter of appointment has some specific, very specific wording that is meant to ensure that the International Center can see that, yes, this like appointment for a TA, for instance, for between the beginning of fall and end of the fall semester, does say that they're making, I don't know, X amount of money, but that they are on a 9-month contract and that they are going to have an appointment in the spring, right? Because that is what is needed. That is basically what is needed for the I-20 renewals to be a smooth process.
so that's a valid, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
So I think that if that's the concern, then hopefully as we go through this, I think we may have effectively addressed that concern in the way we repropose this. So I think we may have addressed that, but let me go ahead and let me get through there. That starts down like line 37. So let me go ahead and give it a shot. And when we get to that point, I'll try to sort of accentuate that and then we'll go from there. So I think the first component that we want to talk about is a wording change in line 9. And I think there's a significant difference between the use of the word outline and the word includes. And the difference is the fact that in our reading of that statement is a formal document that outlines the terms and conditions of employment for a selected job candidate. The bottom line is that we are concerned, and I think justifiably so, that if there were a conflict between, we do not want the individual contracts to wind up clouding or muddying the issue of the CBA. And we want that all of those letters to be consistent with the CBA, not to be in conflict with it. So if there's a statement that says that the document outlines the terms and conditions of employment for a selected job candidate, in my reading of that, if someone put a term and condition of a letter of employment that didn't conform to the CBA, then the CBA would seem to say that's acceptable. Whereas if it includes them, it should be consistent and it includes some terms and conditions, but it is not intended to be a substitute. It is not part and parcel. It's on contract. It does not stand apart and away from the CBA.
Sure. I mean, if that's makes it more clear, then
Is that,
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think it changes the general definition unless that was kind of the intent. So that's that one. Moving down to, I've got both of your copies here. I'm just kind of going back and forth on my notes too. I've got the clean one and the other one. When we go down to, I think all the stuff that is in there is okay until we get down to line 33. So in line 33, about halfway through, I added the words interpreted as comma. So you had proposed the letter of offer shall not be written in any way that could be reasonably be interpreted as guaranteeing specific assignment details beyond the initial period of appointment. that's not the same as not being interpreted that way. So we wanted to be clear that we can't write it. We shouldn't write it in such a way that it could be reasonably interpreted that way, but it also shouldn't be interpreted that way. So those are two, we wanted to add that addition, and that's the original, that's closer to the original intent, we think.
Okay,
So, obviously, you want some protections against someone writing it almost in a deceptive way. I mean, clearly, you made that clear, I think, in your presentation. We understand that. But we also don't want people to, despite how it's worded, we want them to know that they're not supposed to interpret it. All right, so, then we get down to line 37. So you had previously broken letters of appointment and reappointment into two different components, basically with separate sort of timelines, expectations, and uses. What we're attempting to do here is restructure in 4.2 that you would get either a letter of appointment, which is specifically referring to following the initial letter of offer that gives clarification, and then the letter of reappointment, which would be coming subsequent to that first term. Now, what we tried to do was to make it clear that we do not want, because I think what we heard was, we don't want the letters of reappointment to be any less clear. And this, I think, now I'm sort of running into what Eva's point was. We don't want the letters of reappointment to fail to provide some of the basic information that's needed for people to go ahead and make their applications, whether it's through UFIC or any other way. And so by putting them together, we did not distinguish down in lines starting in 56. We did not distinguish that these things would not be required in either of them. In other words, whether it's a letter of appointment or a letter of reappointment, the things that Eva was sort of talking about, whether it's the time, the length of the appointment, the term. Previously, the notice of reappointment was outside of this section.
Mhm.
So we've said, okay, look, I think we hear you. We don't want to create two different notices. But if these are the things that need to be put in there and they need to be included, okay, we'll make sure that all the relevant information is included.
Ava, what do you have for that?
Yeah, so something that we have been struggling with is the word appointment, right? So there's the reappointment and then there's an appointment, a letter of appointment. And the length of those like changes, right? So if I'm on a 9-month stipend and I am reappointed for 9 months as a teaching assistant, right? I might not know what course I'm going to TA in the fall when I receive my reappointment notice in the spring, but I know that I'm going to be a TA. I'm going to be a TA for 9 months. And so that's the length of the reappointment is 9 months. But then once I get the letter of appointment, it does say that I'm on a GA9. So technically, I would hope that if I'm renewing my I-20, that the International Center will see that and say, okay, they're on a 9 months. So they are expecting, we are all expecting for them to get this tuition waiver and this stipend in the spring, not just in the fall. But the letter of appointment has very specific dates for the appointment that is specified in the letter of appointment. And I know like this is like so convoluted, but you see what the issue is, right? Like in the letter of appointment, there's one date, and then in the reappointment noted, if anything, there's another date or length of appointment.
Are
So
you
I
talking
don't
about
know.
line 60 in line where it says length of appointment?
Yeah, length of appointment. So is that going to be 9 months, or is that going to be the fall semester in this scenario?
Yeah, so I think that's the situation that because colleges or departments have the right to appoint on a semester by semester basis, those people, the GAs who receive a semesterly appointment would be at a disadvantage for making an application because they would have to wait almost until they got the subsequent letter. Is that what you mean?
No, not necessarily. So I am on a 9-month appointment, right? And I receive a letter of appointment every semester telling me who I'm going to TA for. And even though I'm on a 9-month appointment, that letter specifies a length of appointment that is like semester by semester. And so if I went to the International Center with this document, they could read that as you don't have funding for the spring, even though I do technically, because I have been reappointed by for a GA9 appointment. You see what I'm saying?
No, I see the question. So I think that what we would say then is if you are being reappointed for 9 months, then consistent with what we proposed, and I think mostly agreed on in line 60, that should be the length of the reappointment. And now I'm not gonna say that we don't have GAs that are, I mean, we do have situations where we have GAs that are reappointed on a semester by semester basis. I mean, that does happen. But what you're talking about, Eva, it sounds like is you're reappointed for 9 months, but then when you actually get your letter, it only contemplates a semesterly appointment.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and if I'm reading this and there is like this conflation of letter of appointment and reappointment, I'm not sure that just saying length of appointment is going to be the solution, right? Because
Well-
that letter of appointment is going to have to specify what course I am TAing, and that's only for the fall semester, probably, most likely.
Yeah, so I think the details of assignment are distinct.
Assignment.
Yeah, I think the details of the assignment are distinct. And frankly, I mean, I think that most departments, and depending on the department and the size of the department, do their best to let, and this goes, by the way, this happens with faculty too, to make sure that they know, like, in the fall, what they're gonna be teaching in the spring. But that also is subject to change based on pretty wide range of factors. Somebody goes out on leave, you know, there's a change in, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons it could happen. But I think what's more important about your question, Eva, is that the letter needs to specify, is it a reappointment for 9 months or is it a reappointment for a semester? Because it would, what I would expect to see consistent with the contract as proposed would be, here is, you have been reappointed for 9 months. For the fall semester, your assignment is to teach class X. We will let you know what class you'll be teaching in the spring as soon as that information is available and it's subject to change, you know, some sort of language that acknowledges the fact that we're gonna tell you as soon as we can, but the earlier we tell you, there's still a chance that it could be adjusted. But I think being explicit about you're being reappointed for 9 months or you're being reappointed for 1 semester,
Or your assignment's changing from one
That's-
semester to the next within a 9 month.
that should not be left up for anybody to interpret. That needs to be 100%
Mhm.
explicitly clear.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think that's our intent, and I think that's our intention in the way that it's proposed and written. We think that that's what it says, unless the person would say, here is a letter of reappointment only for the fall semester.
Right.
Now, I will acknowledge that if that's the way that you are being reappointed, that would create, it could create problems for you if you have an application for a visa. I'm not saying that that's not, but I think that's a different issue.
Would another example help? Cause
Go
I
ahead.
have the same situation.
Yeah, go for it.
So when I get a letter of appointment, I get them each semester.
Mhm.
And at the top of the letter, it says, hey, Hannah, you're being appointed to do this class with this professor for these dates. And it says the specific semester dates
Okay,
for this like bi-weekly stipend amount.
okay.
And then it goes through all of the, stuff that's in it, kind of like a syllabus, so
Right.
if you need this, do this.
And there's a place. to
And
sign
it's
it.
signed at the bottom, and then underneath the signature, there's a page that says like more details. And it very clearly says like annual stipend, bi-weekly stipend, like job code,
Like in
and
a
that's where
table,
it says
yeah.
GA9. And then like, the person, the chair, like but that's the only place it says GA9. In the body of the letter,
Mhm.
it only has like, this is the class you're doing in fall semester from whatever, August 15th to December 5th. Even though I am a GA9, that's like way buried at the bottom.
Gotcha.
I think that's one of the reasons why we initially had these as separate documents, because we want one document that outlines you are a GA9 and any required information that they have to have for visas and things like that, and you're reappointed.
Mhm.
But then if your duties change from fall to spring, you're teaching different courses, whatever, if you're an instructor of record versus just a TA, are those going to have different requirements, different FTE calculations? We want to make sure that those are given to people as they are starting those different assignments,
Yeah.
versus,
I gotcha.
appointments. That's why we had those separate to make sure it was clear. Per semester, you can get those documentations saying, here are your details of your assignment.
Right.
But for each reappointment, you have to have a very clear, you are being reappointed for the next 9-12 months. You're reappointed just for a semester. This is what it looks like. This is like your annual rate of pay.
Yeah, I think frankly, even if we were to split it,
Mhm.
if we don't resolve this problem on the
Mhm.
paperwork side, I don't think it's actually gonna solve the issue. Like, I think that we have,
Mhm.
I've had some conversations with, the folks at UFIC who've been really helpful, and I also had some conversations in the records department, who was responsible for maintaining the letter library that has the templates. And I think this is something that we can resolve. Because I think the way that we talked about it at first, of making it clear,
Mm.
like, I think if we present a letter to a GA, it needs to be abundantly clear, and there should be no guesswork about you are being reappointed for a semester, you're being reappointed for 9 months, you're
Mhm.
being reappointed for 12 months.
Mhm.
Like, there should not be any guesswork. You shouldn't have to scroll to the bottom and check. You shouldn't have to call anybody. It needs to be explicit.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think that's a shared interest that we have.
Mhm.
And I think that the intention of the way we presented it in line 60 is that if we need to modify that language to make it that clear, I don't have any problem doing that, because like I said, I don't think anybody benefits from us being ambiguous or vague about
Mhm.
the length of the reappointment term. Like, I don't think there's anybody who benefits from that. I can't even think of a way to nefariously do it. I'm
No,
trying to
exactly.
figure out who
That's why-
benefits.
That's why we just wanna figure it out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a fair, the way that Eva presented it, I mean, I think that's like I said, how long are you inviting me back to work?
Mhm.
Do you want me to come back for 9 months? Do you want me to come back for a semester? Are you going to reappoint me for a year? What is the length of how long you're hiring me for?
I think at least in my department, like, we are intended to be there for 9 months.
Right.
They just only have our teaching assignments for 1 semester at a time. So I get the exact same letter in the spring that says the same thing, but reinserted with the new class and the new supervisor and the new dates. And at the bottom, it still says GA9. Like,
And
I don't,
psych? Are you in psych?
I'm in sociology, Ava's in psych. Mhm.
Let me do some checking
Mhm.
on that, and I'll also circle back, because like I said, the ambiguity of it, that doesn't help anybody.
I think my department very proudly has us on 9-month contracts. Like, I don't think they're trying to pull a fast one
Right.
on us. I think it's just like the format of the letter, and it's the only amount of information that they have.
All right, well, I mean,
Yeah, because I think in my college, I know I've mentioned this before, I think there's a letter of appointment, and then in it, it says your spring assignment to be determined with an addendum. And then you get an addendum that just says, here's how your spring assignment's different than your
Mm.
fall, but the letter of appointment is definitely 9 months or 12 months.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
But so I'm guessing it's different.
Yeah, let me do some work on that. 'Cause I
Unless-
think we want the same thing. We'd have to make sure we describe it the same way.
Unless there's some sort of privacy thing, I'm happy to share one of my letters, if that just like gives you a concrete example or.
Let me just get in touch with them directly,
Okay.
because I want to see how they systematically do it, and then circle
Okay.
back with the records department and see like what's their recommended process, what's best practice, and look at a comparison across a couple different departments.
Okay.
Because like I said, everyone should know exactly what they're sort of getting into. Like, there's no reason to have it be ambiguous.
Mhm.
But
Right.
Again, I would be confused as to who in any way would be served by that, so.
Yeah.
All right, so. So again, I mean, the purpose is, and you can read them there, there's not really, in between line 40 and 45, it really kind of just, gives a pretty general description of what they are. It describes it as a formal document, providing clarifications. I don't think we changed anything in terms of what's in there between lines 56 and 66. I think that's all the same. Now in line 67, we did leave a description of the required duties and expectations. We did take out broken down by FTE.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that we're interested in doing that is we think that's gonna be. I don't know if we can make all of that. I don't know if we'll know everything about what that's gonna entail before the person actually starts working the position, depending on what they're doing. So, I think having it be that specific, obviously, being able to tell GAs what the required duties and expectations are, absolutely. But to break each and every one of those required duties and expectations down by an hour a week, or however the breakdown would be, it's probably not gonna be terribly accurate anyway, until the person gets into, and everybody does their work differently, so.
Yeah, I think the idea there is, especially when we're talking about per assignment versus appointment, we want to know this course normally on, here's an estimate of what past people have taken on, on grading, they normally took a couple hours a week, but this course is more designed. If you're just doing grading, you should spend 15 to 20 hours grading a week. If you are an instructor of record, you should aim to spend 5 hours prep, 5 hours doing teaching, 10 hours grading, things like that. Expectations, so people say this is a benchmark, not something binding, saying this is what you have to spend, but more of a, for this course, this is what people normally spend on it. And then if you are, your first couple weeks going really over those benchmarks, you can have a reason to talk to your supervisor and say, hey, I'm spending way too much time grading. Is there something I'm doing differently or wrong? I think not having those kind of breakdowns makes it kind of tough to say, is it I'm being slow, or are there more people in the course and so it's taking longer than normal? We want to have those kind of check marks to make sure that GAs and supervisors are having that communication about what's expected of them.
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry. go ahead.
And maybe there's a better way for it, phrasing that, but we really want to have this kind of expectations down.
I think what I would say is, I get that. And I do think that it was our intent to provide that type of meaningful conversation and consultation about how long or short it's taking someone to accomplish a specific task
Mhm.
in what we had put in Article 7.
Okay.
So I would, for that, I don't disagree that I think open communication about how long things are taking obviously should be in there. But I think if you would go back and kind of look at the way we tried to handle that on Article 7, I think we would rather put it there.
Okay. I guess we'll see, we'll take a look at that. And that's something as well that when you have different courses you're teaching by assignment, we want to have those fresh duties and expectations kind of translated to you as well, which is why we had that as separate, as per assignment versus per appointment here.
Gotcha.
So we'll take a look at that, and it might be, we want to have sort of an amendment added to make sure people get those duties transmitted to them as their assignment changes.
Gotcha. So the next one is we eliminated 10, which was term payout amount. I don't know exactly what that was supposed to accomplish. The term payout amount would have been in case they were leaving, like in case.
It's just how much they would be paid over that term. People look at their money in a different way. Some people like looking at their annual amount, but some people they say, how much am I going to get paid through December? How much am I going to get paid by week? So we had different rates in there to make sure that however they best viewed their rate of pay, they could translate it to their internal mechanisms the best.
All right, so I'm not gonna lie, I misinterpreted that as a term payout. A lot of times I've heard the phrase term payout to be like when somebody is leaving and they get an acknowledgement of exactly how much money they're gonna get when they actually separate from employment.
No.
So I misinterpreted that. That's my fault. We did we took annual rate of pay, which was in line 68, and we put it back to where it was kind of in the contract now. It has annual and bi-weekly sort of on the same line.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we just took annual rate of pay and put it with bi-weekly rate of pay and put that down in 11.
That's fine, yeah.
Notice of mandatory fees. And we've already talked previously about what's in line 73, the website address provided with the information about the organization. I think we did that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's new. Moving on to 4.3. We've gone back and forth on 4.3. We don't have any changes. I think we finally got the language in 4.3 that we can both kind of live with there.
Yeah.
4.4. I also think with 4.4, I don't think we had any changes in that one either. Standardization. That one, I think that one's the same. Down in line 87, 4.5. We were willing to, you had crossed out general. We're willing to take the cross out of general because the current contract language is that.
Yeah.
Now, the other part was, upon request, employees will be given clarification of these criteria from their supervisors. That we think that's inherent. I mean, like that's a conversation you have with your boss. So I think that, again, we don't think that necessarily has to be stated in that fashion. And part of it also was, I think that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you guys had somewhat taken issue with the fact that employees would have to request it anyway. So, I mean, but I also don't think that that's a line that's a do or die. I mean, if that's something that you guys really want to insist on, we might be able to come up with a slightly different way to word that and it'd be okay.
That was our attempt to rewrite that sentence that you guys had added, in line 90, so.
We can talk about that one some more.
Yeah.
All right, let's go down to, the big one is the fact that, you all had stricken what I believe is currently for, it's not currently for, it's currently for. Four. It is currently. So. You know, that obviously we're interested in putting that back in. We know that you all had stricken it specifically and related to the components that follow, which really appear down in down in 4.8 for the most part. So obviously that's something, and as I said at the outset, we're gonna reassert that language.
Sorry, where are you? You said old
Line
4.4?
Line 93.
93, and a single line section.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it's now listed as 4.6. So it was crossed out on yours in line 86 as a 4.4. We inserted it back in. It's now in line 93 and has been renumbered 4.6. Now going on to the next sort of section, which is 4.7. Which is an R line 96 and was in. It was previously called reappointment notice. We left these in here for the purposes of the deadlines. We've already collapsed the reappointment notice section, including the definition. Into the previous section on letters of appointment. But the reappointment letter deadlines we've left in place. And there's no changes to the deadlines themselves. So feel free to check that those deadlines appear in lines 104 through 108.
Okay.
The reappointment notice stuff again has been removed because we've collapsed the reappointment notice part with the letter reappointment part. So you'll see that there's quite a bit crossed out. So now we are on line 146. Line 146, changes in appointment. There's a lot of this that we've gone back and forth. I think much of this is very similar. The big difference, the most substantive difference you're going to find in line 165, which was your proposal included the fact that denying reappointment had to be predicated upon only for the reasons listed. You know, obviously, as I said at the outset, the university is interested in maintaining our ability to non-renew employees by way of not choosing to reappoint them. That is the mechanism by which we're able to accomplish that. We're not interested in translating all of the current and future GA appointments from a maximum of an annual reappointment to a guaranteed term appointment, which is the way we interpret your proposal. We're just not interested in fundamentally changing the nature of the relationship in terms of calendar and term. Continued failure to perform duties when we're come down line 167. We had suggested 30. This whole section is new, by the way. You all had taken out the word improvement plan. We think an improvement plan is a key component of some of the documentation that can be used. In addition, you all had changed it to 90 days from the 30 we had proposed. We think the 30 is acceptable, especially because it's also it also further says on down in line 171 to provide the employee with a reasonable opportunity to improve to meet stated expectations. That's actually inherent in the and then there's nothing that requires it to be more than that, but there's nothing that requires, it can't be less than that. It can be fewer than 30, but there's nothing that says it can't be more than that. Obviously, it's at least 30. So the other thing is 90 days is way too much to both meet the deadlines required for reappointment and also to accomplish an improvement plan if that's what needs to happen. So it winds up becoming you would almost have to do it for a subsequent semester and guarantee reappointment to the GA, and that's just not something that we're interested in. That's not a road we're interested in going down. Moving down to, there was language down in your proposal line 166, which we've deleted from 172, which is I know you had said that it wasn't a guaranteed performance improvement plan, but I didn't read this as optional in your proposal on line 165. So an option of an improvement plan is provided, but it sounds like this would be something that would have to be done in addition to, and we're not interested in doing it in addition to. It is an option, it is not a requirement, is the way our proposal is structured. Okay, down to line 170, your proposal line 175. It's in our proposal line 182. There's nothing in this article that allows us to ignore Article 21, so it's inherent that we have to discipline people in accordance with Article 21. It doesn't need to be restated. There's nothing in this article that gives an exception. So we don't need to include it.
Okay.
All right, 180 down to 183, which is in the old one. Because this is different colors. So this is number 4, which is 176. So we wanted to include the actual notice period directly in number 4. And I thought we had done that. The construction, I mean, this is really almost a contract construction issue, is to have it be in C as a separate provision, but then only refer to one case above, we think is pretty confusing. So, I mean, I don't think it's a change in substance. I think it's literally just where that provision placed.
I'm so sorry. Where are you exactly? I was with you and then you were like, it's only, and I was
Okay.
like, I've lost it.
If you look in our proposal line 183, okay.
Lack of funds?
And if you compare that to your proposal, line 179. So the sentence, in cases of lack of funds, the university shall provide no fewer than 30 days notice to the affected employee. We're not actually changing the notice period that you contemplated in your proposal. We're leaving it at the same. We are just suggesting moving it to that part in that case, because 4.9 contemplates 5 different cases.
Mhm.
But that provision in the old proposal is written in a confusing way, because instead of it being attached to that case, it appears to attach to everything, but then exclude all the other cases.
Okay.
And it's that way in current contract language too, by the way, which I think is it's poor construction. 4.7, it currently appears in the current contract as 4.7B. But then it says, in case of 4.7A4.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, just put that, if it's so specific to only that one case, just put it on the one case so that it's clear. At least that's our recommendation.
Okay.
But like I said, the 30 days that's not a change. As well as the fact that it's aggrievable. We left that in there too. It's got to include a statement that it's aggrievable. So the whole thing looks blue, but that language actually appears in your proposal. It's just blue.
Right.
All right, on down to 5. So we had a little bit of a change on 5. We don't contest the fact that they can voluntarily resign. I think we said this at the outset when you brought this originally, that it's inherent. There's nothing in here that says you can't resign, but voluntary resignation by the graduates, but the example we kind of struggled with a little bit. I think it would be confusing for people to consider graduation as being a resignation. I mean, I understand that functionally it probably functions that way, but the example that we would prefer to give is if people transfer to another institution.
Sure.
Again, I get that probably in a practical employee sense, when somebody graduates, they resign, but it just seems weird for someone to finish their program and successfully complete their degree in defense and then be like, I'm resigning my job. I don't know. It almost
resigning and I'm gonna stay on.
Yeah, well, you can't do that either, obviously.
Mhm.
It seems more of a culmination, but.
You sort of finished your career, but you're not retiring. either.
Right, exactly. So, all right, so now we're down to The other thing that we struck is you had proposed, make every effort to reassign the affected employee for the duration of the term outlined in the appointment letter. That previously, I should put a statement in case. That should be, hang on a second. That is a statement that actually should appear in line 185. Let me send you an amended version of this. I know, I apologize.
This is for lines 195 through 198.
Yeah, so line 185 should include a statement that's similar to the current statement in 4.7 B about reassigning the affected employee. When I moved it up, I missed that, and that wasn't my intent. So let me make an adjustment. I'll make that circle in 185. That's my mistake.
Sorry, to be clear for my notes, you're saying you were intending to leave in the sentence that you would like to reassign?
It's currently in there, yeah.
Okay.
So it actually refers to that in 4.7 B.
Okay.
About making effort to reassign, specifically, again, in the case of 4.784, which is the lack of funds issue.
Okay.
So like I said, that phrase needs to be inserted. Approximately in line 185, and I'll make that insertion and send you an amended proposal. Apologize for that. All right, so now we're back to. I know we've said this multiple times, however, the language that you all had asked for on severance. That's not something that we're interested in. We're not gonna be agreeing to a severance program. And that's lines 199 through 202. Now we're down to line 203, which now represents the new 4.9 C. There we go, which is your proposal line 179. No, not 179. Page 3, page 4, it's on page 5. That's page 5.
That's CCO.
What's that?
It looks black. Is it
Yeah,
just
I'm just
CCO?
trying to find,
Okay.
my other copy of your proposal, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So this is line 191 on your other proposal, and there's no changes in the text of that paragraph, which runs from our proposal lines 203 to 206.
Okay.
Mhm.
You had it as F, we have it as C. Line G, which is our new D, line 207, 208 is unchanged. Line 210 through 214, which is we're back on numerical track now, being 4.9. That should be unchanged. We had gone back and forth about written communication and letter. Basically, we want to be able to serve it by email, and I think that you all had said that's acceptable. And then 4.10, which is a very long standing, we've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on 410.
Mhm.
I think we finally have it where we're both happy because we don't have any changes to that one. We went back and forth, and if you remember, that was actually the subject of an MOU last year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's our
Well-
report.
Okay. We'll take a look at that.
Thank you. I don't think the other ones are gonna be quite so detailed. Let's go to 8.
Okay. Yep.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think we're pretty close on 8. For the most part, I think. The big thing to focus on here is, it's gonna be an 8.4, which is bereavement leave. And I will say that I know we had said that we had given you our best version of this. So I'm going back on that because we do have a slight change to bring you,
Okay,
and that is, what we are interested in doing is modifying our previous less vast and final offer on this to say, all right, irrespective of the location of the person passing, we would be willing to be able to provide all GAs 4 days of paid leave upon the death of an immediate family member as defined in 8.4 above. In the event that the immediate family member resided internationally at the time of their death, the GA shall be entitled to up to 6 additional days of unpaid leave. So what we're saying is, okay, look, there was some concern about the 5 days is not enough to cover it. We don't want to have to apply for an unpaid leave just for this reason. Okay, so the 4 will be universally paid irrespective, and then up to 6 days that would not be considered part of the 5, which also wouldn't be considered part of the unpaid leave application. You would be able to immediately access up to 6 unpaid days after the 4 without having to go through the unpaid, the application for unpaid leave process. So we think that this is a pivot to a position that's significantly closer to where you all were. And we really hope that with that final adjustment, we'll be able to get there on this one.
yeah, my concern is the undue financial burden on international GAs. Essentially, I mean, before they were allowed additional paid leave days, due to additional time taken for flights, and for different cultural reasons. And this kind of says, if they're international, they still get the same number of paid days, which I do, I mean, we notice is a raise of your previous counter. But essentially, if you're international and you need those additional days, you're essentially losing pay to take them, which is a concern. And it's different than what we had before. I mean, obviously, we'll look at this and we'll see what we think, and we'll talk to some people and make sure that what it looks like. I do appreciate you guys taking the extra time to kind of change this up and listen to some of our comments. I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Let's do 9. You have 9? Yeah, let's do 9.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think the big components here, if you want to look at, go down to line 18. We are trying to, we acknowledge, and I think, and I don't, I think Hannah, but I'm not sure because it doesn't have the name list. I think your comment, which starts in sort of line 19 and goes through line 28. I read that and I appreciated kind of what you were saying. So this is how we've attempted to construct that line in the sand that you sort of contemplate. And that is, the parties acknowledge that this agreement shall not constrain a GA's rights to engage in constitutionally protected behaviors. And I think one of the reasons that we're more comfortable with that phrasing is because then the test is not whether, we don't have to worry about whether you're acting as an individual, because then it's inherent in the fact that if you're engaging in a constitutionally protected behavior, then that is the standard inherent to whatever you're doing, as opposed to us having to figure out, well, this wouldn't be okay for an employee, but it is okay for an individual. If it's constitutionally protected, then there you go. So that is our attempt to sort of meet you guys where you were with that one. The other, we also, there was sort of I think there was a bit of things appearing more than once. So if you would just check line 9, without institutional discipline or restraint, that is, go ahead and take a look at that phrasing difference. Now, when we get down to,
Sorry, where are we? I was typing this sentence. He said, look at something new.
We removed this and we combined it with this. So they should have the same aspects of academic freedom constrained in both. The same
All
kind of
right,
definitions.
so when we look down at. That's not good, man. It should be present.
I brought one for the first time today. These track changes on.
All right, so look down at line 21, please.
Yep.
Members of the bargaining unit also have responsibility that includes the competent performance of duties and obligations and the commitment to support the responsible exercise of academic freedom for others. So here's the bottom line. The title of the article is academic freedom and responsibility. And there is a contemplation and we've stipulated to the inclusion of outlining what the university's responsibility is with regard to academic freedom. I guess what the flip side of it is the fact that there's also a statement about what their employees have with respect to a responsibility of academic freedom, especially in a situation where you will be engaging in research and also, working in classrooms with others who will be attempting to maybe express ideas. So I think that I know we've gone back and forth on this statement. The overwhelming majority of this article is new,
Mhm.
and it's much more detailed in terms of what rights are being explored and identified. I don't think that it's unreasonable for us to extend to have a statement regarding what the responsibilities of the employees are. Go ahead.
Is that not just what was in 9.2 below? Underneath where it says academic responsibility of a GA?
No, that was crossed out on our copy that you gave us. It was crossed out in both places. Did you not mean to cross it out in
Okay.
both places? Yeah, I've got yours right here.
I don't think the intention was to like get rid of it. It might have been like moved or
Oh.
something.
Yeah.
I
so-
think our discussion there was,
Yeah.
Because we very clearly have like a definition of academic freedom, a definition of responsibility,
Here, just so you see, I mean, this is the one that you gave us. You can see you've got it crossed out in both places. So if that wasn't the intention, see it's crossed out here. And it's crossed out up here.
is it up in here? There was a lot of repetition.
No, I know. No, I
Okay.
get it. No, I don't see it there.
Okay, that
Yeah, it
wasn't
was-
like it wasn't the intention to
Okay.
like get rid of it. It was just to like make it clear.
That's fine. Well, if it's a matter of location, then that's a different conversation.
Okay,
But it was, at least in the copy that I got, and I just showed it to you, I mean, it was crossed out in both places.
yeah, it could have been crossed out.
Yeah.
We've had a discussion before about the structure of the sentence, and it's
Yeah.
that last half, the commitment to support the responsible exercise of academic freedom of others. We're not sure what kind of test that entails. And we're not,
Okay.
we were trying to make it clear as well as the differences between within a classroom and outside of a classroom. While you're paid and when you're not paid, what responsible exercising of the academic freedom of others, what that support looks like to the university, because it's a very broad statement. And we don't want any GAs taking actions as an individual that the university could then say, well, that is not supporting the responsible exercising academic freedom of others, even if the GA would disagree, right? So we're trying to draw that line of, that might have been why we disappear, that sentence was deleted, and maybe we just intended to delete that first half, but.
All right, well, definitely take a look at it
Mhm.
and let us know, obviously, we've got it now over to you also. When you come back, let us know if it is a sentence that was merely a matter of moving it, or if it was something that you specifically object to.
Mhm.
And we can have some more conversation if we need to.
okay.
All right, I think for the most part, we're now down to the numbering. I don't know why the numbering is so off. It was listed as 9.4. It's now 9.3 hours.
This is line 40 on the copy you just gave.
Yeah, so we're now down in line. Hang on. So there we go. So line 36 goes to line 40, so now I'm down in 9.4, which is in our proposal, also 9.4. In fulfilling assigned research duties, theoretical, conceptual, methodological design of the research on the guidance of research, now I'm down to line 51. In the research, she is permitted to maintain and publish their opinion and conclusion relevant to their domains. We did not make any changes to that. 9.5 was stricken in yours, and we left it stricken. down to the new 9.5. I don't know why it says 9.5 again. So, there it is, Hannah.
Okay. Yeah, we moved a bunch of stuff around.
So here is the same sentence in the reverse.
Mhm.
Or applying to the university. you mean?
Applying to the university.
Mhm.
So this
Mhm.
is under the title of the university. So if we want to make a statement that it's mutual and only have it appear once, but you can see that it's almost the same exact sentence, but now it's under the title of what is the university's responsibility? You know, whether or not there is a similar responsibility for the individual. So that's the parallel sentence. So it seems repetitious, but
Mhm.
again, it's in the context of who's responsible for it. Beyond that, it then goes down to, I don't think we have any changes in lines 74 through the bottom of the page, which is 95. I know we spent a lot of time before going back and forth about basically students misbehaving in the classroom.
Yeah,
So really what we spent a lot of time on is if you look down, it was in yours in lines 103 through 105. It looked down at line 106 and upholding academic freedom research, the university will not, and what we said was unreasonably inhibit any GA in their endeavor to explore appropriate avenues of scholarship within the guidelines provided by the GA supervisor and the field's ethical standards of the particular academic discipline. So we heard you that you are interested in contemplating the direct supervisor and or your PI. And I think that what we attempted to do was codify that relationship and the constraints that should be provided. And then describe the fact that the university will not unreasonably inhibit your endeavor. So that is our attempt to sort of construct a sentence from the proposal that you had given us, and then there's no changes in 9.6, which is.
yeah, I mean, we'll have to take a look at this, obviously, and we will. Some of the language in that last B section, just thinking as we have before, you know, what are the tests involved? You know, what is reasonably versus unreasonably? What is appropriate versus inappropriate avenues of scholarship? Who decides what is reasonable and unreasonable? Well, who decides what is appropriate and inappropriate? And if the answer is university, then this sentence doesn't hold much water. But I think we'll have to take a look at that and see what we think about it. Because we don't want to end up in a place where we have this sentence, but it means nothing because the university decides what is appropriate and inappropriate without any sort of guidelines for anything else. So we'll take a look at that.
I guess, I mean, our specifically to your point, that's why we specifically linked it to within the guidelines provided by the GA supervisor and the ethical standards of the particular academic discipline.
Yeah.
So we had heard what you had said last time about sort of the deference to the supervisor. Okay, do you guys have any today or no?
We're happy to hear Article 10 from you. We have a couple here, but we'd rather hear Article 10
Okay.
first.
Good.
Maybe.
Thank you.
So there's really only two lines on the page that matter from our perspective.
Mhm.
I know that JU is interested in additional language in lines 5 through 17 and also lines 25 through 30 regarding, you know, guaranteed minimum increases over the life of the contract, as well as you had previously been interested, but I think maybe at this point are maybe not so interested in asserting the need to do it early. The two critical lines are going to be lines 20 and 43. And this offer on Article 10 does constitute our last, best, and final offer on stipends. So let me be clear about that. And what we're suggesting is a minimum 9-month stipend of $20,600, minimum 12-month stipend of $27,467, and a merit raise of $800 for 9-month and $1,067 for 12-month. And I don't think there's any other, other than what you've heard from us before about the increase to the minimum stipend, I don't think there's anything else of critical difference from what you've seen from us before.
Okay, yeah, I guess let me be clear here as well, that, obviously you stated this is your last best final offer, as you have for other articles, and I'll restate what I have said before, which is, that's not how we appreciate how bargaining works. We appreciate bargaining as coming to the table to continue to try to find that middle ground and to have a discussion. Saying last best final, does not give us a discussion that says we're putting a period at the end of the sentence, and that's not how bargaining works in our end. So, to be frank, I don't respect the language of last best final. We're not going to respect the language of last best final. We are going to approach bargaining each session as we are going to try to take the next step, and we hope that you appreciate, comes back and takes that next step with us. And so, to every time we get an article to hear it's last best final, it's last best final. We're not willing to make movements. We're not interested. That is not bargaining. That is, trying to dictate terms, and that's not what we're here at the table to do. That's not what, GAU approaches the table to do. I think we've been very clear that we're willing to strike out several portions of things that we think improve the lives of, GAs across the university, and to come back each week and say, we will lose some of these protections, so we have the effort of finding a middle ground, finding something that we're both happy with. And saying last best final, saying we're not making movements, giving us something that is against all of the ideas we have, where we've stated time and time again, we're focused on stipends. That is frankly disrespectful. Ava, if you have something else to add, feel free.
Yeah, I was gonna echo your point and your disappointment, Austin. I am very disappointed to see these numbers along with UF's refusal to basically bargain Article 16. If you're really that interested in getting rid of current contract language on Article 16, you're going to have to make a tremendous effort in 10.1. You're going to have to meet the minimum standard of living in Gainesville for us to even consider getting rid of something as essential as RTs. So yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Article 10, and I'm not surprised that at how disappointed I am, but I am extremely disappointed to see these.
Yeah, and I mean, to be frank, I've used the term disappointment, and I am disappointed, but at this point, it's beyond disappointment. It is just, it's a refusal to come and bargain with us. It's coming, and obviously for some of these articles, we do see movement. We've made such progress on academic freedom on Article 8. We've seen the UF come to the table and say we're willing to have these discussions, and we're not seeing that with some of these articles. We're just seeing we're hitting a brick wall, and that is not something that we appreciate coming time and time again when we're volunteering our time to do this. To be frank, I have articles that I plan to present. We've been working hard on getting a couple of these down, but with the nature of what you've given us today, I think we're going to have to revisit those and making sure we have the best proposals we have possible for you guys. So we're gonna have to revisit those. So
Okay.
I think that's all we have for you today.
GA was like, we had other articles to bargain, but now that you fucked us over, we're gonna fuck you over. So we're not gonna show you those now.
That's not a member of the bargaining team. That's someone who's just unmuted in the chat.
That's not one of your bargaining team members?
That's not a member of the bargaining team. So
Hi.
Hey.
So